Hey, this is Alex, and I'm going to be showing today a little video on doing motion tracking in Adobe Premiere. Motion tracking in Adobe Premiere basically just means tracking a subject as it's moving, having an object kind of follow along with it. So, this is something you can do in After Effects with the automated motion tracking feature, but you can do it manually in Adobe Premiere if you'd like. So Premiere does not have the automated feature of After Effects, but it does have the ability to do it. It's just going to take some patience, and I have to emphasize that, most of all, patience and precision, really, being very specific, detail-oriented. So basically what I have here queued up is, I've already done a little bit of an effect on some clips. This is from my student's film. We see there's a woman here. It's actually in the movie, it's the daughter, and she shoots her parents. So it's, not exactly the most upbeat, bright moment here, but it is a dramatic moment. So the idea here is, as you can see on the side here, on the left upper preview box, the father doesn't have anything on his shirt right now. There's no marks, and he's already been shot by the daughter. However, if I go to my timeline, and this is my final result video window here, I can go ahead and jump in time to a little bit later, and we can see exactly what. See, there's this little dot here. So that dot has been created to imply the bullet hole. There's a little bit of transparency on it as well. And so what you have is something like this. Okay? So the bullet hole follows him, follows his body, doing it slow-mo here, as he goes down. Okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that here. So I just want to mention, on the left side here, I have a couple assets. I have first of all, I have, of course, the clip itself of the daughter shooting the father. I can also queue up this nice little bullet hole, which is something we got from, or my student got, I should say, from YouTube. And if you go a little bit in time, you can see it eventually does this cool little kind of blood dripping, which you can add a little later. But basically, it's kind of functioning as a little rip hole in the shirt. It's not really the greatest quality image, but it'll do. It's going to be so small. I also have a gunshot sound effect here, and then this is my sequence, okay? All my assets over here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So basically what happens is the daughter, the father comes out of the, out of the room. The daughter is holding the gun, and then basically she shoots him. And we want to time it right when we hear the click of the gun on set, and the father also kind of contorts his body, and you basically want to put that dot in, but then you want the dot to follow his body movement. So basically, if I frame by frame, you can see it's going with him, see? Almost like it's on his shirt. Eventually, it actually disappears because it goes behind her hair. And if you notice on my timeline, notice this track here where the gun hole that's the top track, the gun hole. I put a little pause in it there, a little break in it there, because we don't see it until the daughter moves aside, and then there it is again, way down here, a little shrunk down more, and then again, tracking with the father as he kind of writhes on the floor, unfortunately, poor guy, and it stays with him, okay? And that was all done manually, okay? It was all done manually. So the idea here is to basically track that motion all the way. I'm going in reverse now. Back to the beginning. So you see there's nothing, and then bam! And I also added this little flash. That's a little lens flare effect, and if you zoom in on my timeline, that's something I added just kind of right here. I bladed the video, the video of the father and the daughter, and I just kind of added a little lens flare effect. That's an optional thing, just to give the gun a little something. Well, let's talk about the motion tracking. So I'm going to go back. So basically, let's talk about this. So yeah, I'm going to go back to the beginning here. This top track here, this is, of course, the green screen gun hole. I've already added a ultra key effect. Let's go to the effect controls up here. Ultra key, as you know, will get rid of the green. Okay, So that is just green screening, and hopefully you have some familiarity with that. If not, look at a tutorial on that. But basically get rid of the green, so I'm left with just the little dot there, okay? And then this bottom track here is just the video itself of the daughter shooting the father. So I'm going to really zoom in on the frames here. It's really, really tight. Actually, we're all the way zoomed in. Okay. So if we go back here, go back one frame, before this gunshot video begins, you can see there's nothing there, right? Then I go forward, and basically I'm allowing the gunshot to appear there, because that's when I heard the click on set. That's when he also started to act, that exact frame. So you have to find that frame when he starts to kind of react to it, okay? So that's where I decided it is, okay? So then what I basically did is I shrunk down, okay? Clicked on this clip here, went up to Effect Controls, went to Position, the Position Effect, and the Scale, and I moved it around and I shrunk it down here, okay, to the size I wanted. For me, to make this as easy as possible, I kind of acted like it was almost on his chest, his left nipple, if that makes sense, just for reference. I mean, this is a little bit trickier because usually it's more helpful if there's something you can line it up with, like if he had some sort of design on his shirt, some line I could line up the reference point, the gunshot point, but since there isn't, I'm just kind of estimating where I would imagine kind of his nipple line is kind of right there, okay? And then I go ahead and I clicked the stopwatch icon, as you can see these blue ones, and that puts in the first two keyframes here, okay? And then you basically, this is going to be very frame by frame. I just use the right arrow, and I go in time one time, okay? And what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom in here so you can really see this. Let's go up to maybe 150. We'll move the window up here. There we go. So there it is. As you can see, there's the gunshot. We go back a little bit. It wasn't there. I actually have the playback on low quality just so it doesn't lag too much. And then once it stops, it goes to full quality. So there's where it first appears. Then I go to frame 2. Basically, all I did is I moved, in this case, just the position. I decided not to move the scale because he didn't really go back at all too much. He just kind of moved to the side. And so I adjusted the position. I hit a new keyframe, and I adjusted the position. So that's the order of events. You hit to add a new keyframe, so it adds the second keyframe, and then you adjust the position. Okay? And then you go ahead to the next the next, I should say, frame. Just pushing the right arrow. So his body moved a little more. There's two things moving, him and also because it's a handheld shot. And that's actually kind of cool because handheld shots, if you can add a little bit of, an effect like this, will add some authenticity. It's kind of nice as a shake to it, and you're still stabilizing a tracking shot here. An element that you're tracking. Anyway, so then I went ahead and I added another keyframe. As you can see, it's right there, and moved my position metrics a little more. Either you can double click the layer itself. I usually recommend down here kind of hitting if you're doing this, just hit the lock icon so you don't accidentally move the bottom layer. And then it's just this one. You double click it, and then you're able to move it, okay? So if I were to go ahead and lock this, if I double click this layer, as you can see, I now have this box. This is what allowed me to move it. I don't want to move it, though, because I already have it in the right place. But basically, I just hit the Add Keyframe button, adds a keyframe, and then you can either manually move it, or you can drag these little sliders here. When you hover over it, there's a little icon, left or right, that'll let you move to go up or down X and Y. Or you can even type in, it's a little more tedious to do it that way, but you can type in a value. Anyway, so let's go back to this. Let's go back down here. I'm going to go to the right a little more. Same thing. So I would click to add a keyframe and change these values, or I can manually move it here. And I just kept doing this. So you can see we're going to have to move the window. Just kept doing this, and whoops. I think I accidentally actually moved. See how this turned red here? So now the render effect there, I undid it. I accidentally moved it, nudged it a little bit. Okay, now I just wanted to kind of show you going through time. Just imagine I'm adding keyframes and I'm moving it each time. Let's go out a little more so you can see it a little better here. Oops, we're on our hair. Let's go back up to his chest here. And as you can see, as I move it, oh, I did it again. There we go. You have to always click the timeline to make it active again. Okay, otherwise, if you hit the right arrow, it thinks you're trying to nudge the keyframe, so just be careful about that. So then I go in time, and as you can see, it's animating with his body. Let's go out a little more so you can see it even more dramatically. Go to 75 here. Third time's a charm. There we go. See, he moved a little. It's moving with him. Moving with him. I'm just manually positioning it on each frame, imagining where again that kind of nipple line is, and then eventually, bam! It goes behind her hair. You know, if it was one of those things where it's kind of halfway there, I figured it was enough of a movement it could go behind her. You could get fancy with it and kind of mask half of it around her hair and so forth. Anyway, then we'll go ahead and we'll zoom back out because now it's hidden. And now we're going to go in time to, there's where it appears again. Let's zoom back in to get a closer look. Okay. I want to go ahead and, he's on the ground now, so I have to scroll down to find him here. I'm a little bit jumping around here. Okay, here we go. So eventually, as we go through the timeline here, you should, yeah, there it is. See, hidden by her hair, and bam, it's revealed. Let's go another frame. See, there's his chest. Go another frame. And basically, I did the same thing. I did my best to animate it. A little fuzzy because I have to let it stop if I want to see the full quality. Again, that's a playback thing where you can, right here, make it an 1/8 quality. And I go a little more in time. There it is again, matching his movement. I mean, this is very tedious. You just have to kind of, you know, can't be afraid. You know, by the way, the reason you were seeing that there, I was still selecting the other clip. If I go ahead and I select this clip now, there we go. Now the box is on this one. Just wanted to make sure. If you saw that, that was the other clip from before when he was standing up. Anyway, here we go. So we'll keep going through time. There, keep going. He's rolling. I also shrunk it down a bit, just FYI. This is something you might want a tiny bit do if you want to animate the scale over here if he's kind of moving back. Very subtle. It's basically how detail oriented you want to be. I mean, the more you sell it, the better it will be. It's very small, so sometimes you can get away with it not being. Oops, did it again with the not moving the correct one. Let me just undo. Yeah, I think actually I went back enough times it just caused it to be in the red there, but that's okay. So let's go back up here. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to show the rest of the steps I took all the way to, see, it's still moving with him. And at this point, by the way, he's not even moving. The camera's moving. See what I mean? These last couple ones, I'm going to go back. He's not moving. This is just a shaky camera moving. So I'm trying to kind of match that. Okay? Still moving with him, camera shaking. And then basically what I did at the end here, I didn't want to, you know, this is where I'm talking about the time commitment, but I did a little freeze frame. Oops, is it going to let us zoom back out here? There we go. A little delay there. So from this point on, as you'll notice, I put a blade mark here. I just freeze framed it, and the reason I did that was just for argument's sake, so I didn't have to, you know, go through everything, because basically the camera keeps moving, and you have to keep animating with keeping that spot right there on his chest. But now, you know, you can slowly see the see that little bit of blood drip out, which is kind of cool. So that's basically the long and the short of it. I mean, you just have to kind of match it. So now that I've kind of showed you, let me just go ahead and I'm going to copy this whole thing for a second, drag it over here. Okay, and I just want to show you a little bit the beginning process here, just to make it a little more, you know, just to really hammer it in. So let's go ahead and start from the beginning. So let's say I put the little dot right there. I'm going to go ahead and lock this back track here. Okay, and I'm working with just this front one. What I'm going to do, see all my keyframes here? I'm going to actually delete all of them, except for the first two. Okay, again, the first two were generated when I hit the stopwatch icon, and that's basically the default position, the default keyframe. So right now, if I were to go in time, you'll notice Oh no, the dot's just staying there. It's not moving with him. So I gotta go and I gotta animate it. All right, so let's go to the first frame. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead to my little zoom tool here, and I'm gonna zoom in, get really close to it because it's much easier to do it this way. So there it is, and I basically want to keep it kind of around this area where his nipple would be. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and double click it, and then I'm going to click here on the timeline to make it active, and then hit the right arrow key on my keyboard. And then I'm going to go to position, because position is the metric I'm changing here. And I'm going to hit the little add keyframe. So see, it adds a keyframe there. And now it's just a matter of kind of moving it. And let's see, where do I need to move it? Well, let's take a look at the previous movement. If I go back a frame, it's there. Go forward. Seems like it shifts a little bit, almost like he shifted slightly, his body shifted slightly to the right. Yeah, so let's go ahead and move this, double click here and move this one a tiny bit to the right. Whoops. I think just because I got a lot going on here, including the recording, it's lagging a bit, but you basically just want to move it over just a little bit. Okay? So let's see here. It's there, and then maybe a little bit too much. Yeah, maybe I might have moved it just a little too much, so let's go back just a tiny bit here. Move it just back a little bit here. A little back this way. And let's try it again. And I'm telling you, once you get the hang of this, I know it seems tedious, it will kind of naturally go. So there's the first frame. Okay, not bad. What's the third one? Third one shifts even more. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit the Add Keyframe button. Double click this guy, and let's move him a little more again. And by the way, if you feel sometimes you might even be too zoomed in. If it helps you, zoom back out. Sometimes you need to see, a wider view for better reference. So obviously I went way too low here. So basically I just want to keep it around where his chest, right to the center of his left pec right here. Okay, so bring it down a little more. There we go. So let's take a look at now what I have here. This first one, second one, third one. Second one, I think I could still do a little bit of adjustment, just looking at it now. I think it needs to go a little more kind of this way. You may notice that you may have to revisit. It's fine, as long as you're on that particular keyframe, you can just grab and you can do adjustments. So let's look at it now. Okay, here we go. Here's first frame, second frame, third frame. See that, how it moves, his body twisted? The thing to it, probably even I can nudge it a tiny bit more to the left. Again, you could split hairs over this, but once you get into it, it does start to move. I promise you. Then you go on to your fourth keyframe and so forth, and then see. So this is a dramatic movement here, and I'll have to add another one. Actually, this may have jumped 2 keyframes here. No, that was the next one, yeah. So there's a big dramatic movement here. So I'll add another keyframe and go ahead and move this one up, just imagining where that is on his chest, where that kind of right on his center of his left pec. That's all I'm trying to do. Be careful, as you can see, sometimes it thinks I'm trying to move the anchor point, which is not what I want to do. If anything, just click the edge of the box there. Okay, so let's take a look now. Are we ready? No gunshot. Gunshot appears. Moves a little bit. Moves a little bit. Moves a little bit. See that? And basically, and I can see I could do a little bit more fine tuning, but that's kind of the idea. I took the liberty of really, if we go back to my original one here, really working on this one for a while. That's why, as you can see, it's kind of almost perfect. I mean, I would argue it doesn't get much better than that. Look at that. Would you not believe that that was on his chest the whole time? Would you not believe that was on his chest? So again, it's just how much effort you want to put into that process. And you can really sell it. You can really sell it. The good thing is he goes behind her hair, so you can kind of, for a while at least, you know, have a little break from it, and then it will pick up again, of course, here, when he's, as we talked about this, when he's on the ground, and we have to resume from this point on. And, you know, it is, if you look at the, oops, trying to get down here. Yeah, there it is. If you look at the full clip, it actually goes on for a while. I'm going to go ahead and cue it up here. Nope, the other one, not this one. Oh, there it is, yeah. You know, he's laying on the ground for quite a while there, and the camera actually starts to back up. It's lagging a little bit now just because I have the recording. Oop, this is after she is dwelling on what happened. See if we can back up here a little bit before she, so there it is. As you can see, the mother even comes in. And eventually the mother covers the gunshot. So when that happens, you'll have the same situation where you might have to make it kind of disappear when that arm comes over it. So again, it's just a matter of the time you put into it that's going to sell it. It's a manual process. If anything, it's just the tediousness of all these little points that you're putting in. You're just frame by frame adding all this animation, and you're just trying to match as best you can with something. In his case, I chose, you know, the side of his, or the center of his pec, you know, as kind of my reference. Okay. Anyways, I hope that's helpful. That's going to be basically the process of manually keyframing something in Premiere. In this case, a gunshot wound that pops up. And it's a great little effect to add. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.